agenda? You remember?
Yes, ma'am.
Four 4:34, are we ready to call it to order? Okay. So, as chair, I will read what's on the agenda. I wasn't asked to give an agenda today, so I'll just read what's here. Roles of the committee and the members. So, whoever wants to chime in, go ahead.
Well, I think that there was a question about that, and there was a little bit of a open item as to who was on first after the last meeting, and I'm looking around the room at everyone to chime in, but that was my impression. Any comments on that?
Well, can I give you my outside view of this?
Absolutely.
This is the way I understand nuisance calls, or the way the process is that someone calls in and reports something, anything. We go out, and if they're not in compliance, we write a tag. The next day, the sheriff goes out and delivers the tag. We go back, and depends on what the ordinance says, we go back either 24 or 48 hours and recheck to see if it's been in compliance. If it's not been in compliance, then we mark it, well, if it's been in compliance, we mark it complete. If it's not in compliance, we issue another tag, and we have the sheriff deliver it again. Now, here's my question. Most of the ordinances are 2018-17. Now, if you read what happens, it says, whoever violates this section shall, for the first offense, be fined not less than the expense of the removal of the nuisance, nor more than $150 in addition to the expense of remedying the nuisance. Each day that the violation is permitted to exist after receiving notice in writing, the code enforcement officer shall constitute a separate, something is very vague here, offense and further violations. So the way I'm reading this, for every day that this is not corrected, it's $150. If you read this
Verbatim.
verbatim.
Right.
And I have
So-
confirmed that with the attorney.
So there's some that haven't been in compliance for 2 years, and I just did a quick math. That's $105,900 for 2 years.
Right.
So there's our budget.
Well, I don't know if
I'm just
I don't know if I go that far,
No, but what I'm saying, number two things. One,
But that's the understanding that they're gonna pay.
I was being facetious there. For two things about this penalty. One, we don't have a code enforcement officer any
Right.
longer. And two, there's no ending in this. I don't know how that holds up in court if you don't have a deadline and say, if you don't have this corrected within 30 days, this is what we're gonna do.
So at some point, the natural process where it has to go on your property taxes kicks in. That's traditionally how it's been handled, is residents are always given a reasonable time to clean up. We've never said that this needs to be, downtown Dublin. What we've said is you need to clean the trash out of your yard, and you need to get your, junk taken care of, especially if it's the ones recently, which, to be honest with you, Barry, really deserve kind of almost zero tolerance because of the level of, it's just squalor. So where we're at now is fines and penalties are certainly one thing. We will follow the letter of the ordinance, but we'll be taking probably swifter action to try to, either clean up or enforce the penalties problem.
Yeah, that's why I said we need to do that across the board, no matter who they are. And then we probably really need to do this ordinance to get rid of the code enforcement officer.
And that's why I asked a review of ordinances and penalties, and whether or not that's today or a subsequent meeting. This can be a permanent
Yeah.
agenda item, but the point is that we're constantly saying, okay, what's working? What should we be doing different? How fast should we be on some of this? Because I agree, the turnaround and timeline, because I get them. There's an item on this agenda today that says status of new tags. I have received 3. So, you know, I, as everyone knows, tracks them, but I want to make sure that my list gets merged into the general working list. And so if it's not, this is a committee's decision. If it is, then fine, no problem. I just need to know how best this group wants to work together.
So, yeah, so my question was, though, really, is that the procedure? Is what I said about somebody calls in, we go out, we tag, sheriff goes out, we go back, recheck, tag again, sheriff delivers? Is that the procedure?
That's pretty much what happens, and then a lot of times it just dies there. Yeah.
Or a lot of times it gets for the benefit of the resident, it does get cleaned
Yes,
up.
it
I
does.
would
There-
say,
There are times.
I would say about 60% of the time in my occasion, a resident responds, says, all right, it's on me to mow my grass,
Yeah.
and I'll take care of it.
Yeah,
And it's a polite nudge, and we're done, and we move on.
yeah.
Right?
We've had good
It's-
responses
Yeah,
to
we've
the
had
last
very
time.
good responses. And so it's the other 40%, which then I would cut into about 2 groups, one of which requires a more significant nudge, and the other one, you know, to everyone's point, I think we've discussed in the past, where you have multi-year ones, which are much more difficult. And I have some suggestions to lay before the committee as to potentially what to do about some of that as well. But that's for another agenda item here.
I'd like to expand on what Barry had to say as far as roles and responsibilities, if you don't mind. I kind of went into a little bit more detail, but yours was very good. Okay. Basically, town hall takes the complaints, is that correct? They come into
Yep.
here.
Yep.
Then someone in town hall is completing a worksheet or a spreadsheet, or because
So I
did-
have been doing, Joyce, to that, I have been doing one, but it also last go-round Becky brought one as well.
Okay,
So I just wanted to make sure that if there is one, there is one.
Okay.
And it is getting worked, and that's all that I care about.
right. Compile, okay, so then the chair can compile the worksheet, forward it to, no, I don't need that if they were gonna do that. Then there should be a contact made to the resident. And in the past, it's always been the chair and Courtney. I would like to reinstate Courtney as a viable resource for that, if possible. I know she's willing to do it. She does an excellent job and gets a lot of results when she makes those phone calls. People know her name, they know how long she's been in the village.
Yep.
And, you know, she's very good to work with them as well.
It's not technically her job description,
No, it is not.
but she's been kind enough to do it.
Right.
Are you saying this would be before or after tag?
This is before tagging.
This is before tagging.
Before
So
tagging.
we just give a resident a heads up, hey,
Absolutely.
kind of need to do a little cleanup of the trash in the yard, that sort of stuff, and,
Okay.
you know,
Sure.
that
Sure.
sort of thing.
That worked. When we did the ones earlier in the month, we called and tagged, and before we even got tags sent out, we had already gotten, either Misty or Courtney had gotten phone calls saying, hey, we're gonna have this fixed by this date. Me and Barry went out and looked. Some were, some weren't. Some took a little longer,
Yep.
but it worked.
Yes, it does.
So as long as that's good feedback, you know, I continue to field new ones and follow-ups to old ones. So I'm happy to provide input however that works, but it seems to work okay so far.
Well,
So I guess.
I have,
I'm sorry.
and I don't want to speak for Courtney. Somehow I feel like I've been misunderstood, that I didn't want Courtney in the process, and that is absolutely not the case. Courtney's part-time, 20 hours. She wanted to be fiscal officer. She's the clerk of all of the committees and clerk of council, and she wanted to work on,
Personal stuff.
well, not personal stuff. That's the reason you went to 20 hours. But you wanted to work on grants and things like that, anything that was financially related. And that's what she asked council to be reduced to more than a year ago, to that status. And speaking with Courtney, this is not, and again, we don't like to say here, it's not my job, but it is not part of her job in any way, shape, or form. And if I'm misstating any of this, Courtney, that you would like to be out of doing
Yeah,
this.
but I feel like though that the residents, like here's the issue with that, is that the residents that know Misty or I is, they're coming to us. They're
Well, they're-
not calling you at home. They're not calling your cell phones. They're not.
Well, I mean,
you
some
know,
people.
Sometimes they are.
Yeah,
Some people.
well, you know what I'm saying, is that they feel more comfortable when they speak in here. So like I said, like Becky just said, is that no job here is not a job that we've always said that it's not our job. You've seen me out flagging people in the middle of the intersections. So, but I do feel that it is the residents' ability to, even if we do get the complaint, that we can forward it to somebody.
Right.
Or, because the resident's gonna keep coming back to me. And I don't like the squalor. I don't like that there's trash next to a resident, because I feel like if they're calling to me, I wanna make sure that I follow through and get it done.
And that was the point that I was trying to make in the first meeting, which is to say that if I receive something, it should be turned around in 24 hours. It needs to be given to the committee for resolution, or if I need to do it,
But
there is a
also-
process that we go down within a certain amount of
But
time.
also with residents, they don't want to have havoc with their neighbor either. So some of these people, and that's the part I disagree with, is that it is the responsibility of this committee to be going out and looking for those tags, because some residents may have a disposition and say, how do I stay anonymous? Which we do keep that very anonymous. I mean, I will always blame it upon myself, that I've went out and seen it. So, sometimes, the residents want to be assured that, I really don't want to start anything, because they have to live beside that neighbor. None of us have to live beside that person, so I kind of feel like if it's just the complaints, do people really gonna take the time to do that, or are they just gonna say, well, this is just how it always is, and the village is not gonna do anything? Like, we don't wanna have that representation. I know I don't, so that's the reason why I work them, myself,
I
so.
think it's also worth mentioning that we've come off of a relatively long winter where some of this has slid, and if we are able to knock out a certain amount of tags or a certain amount of violations, we shouldn't have thousands more of them roll in,
Right, so, like-
We have some headwinds right now. Having said that, I think it's important to start dealing with the fact that you have them coming in, and so we cannot sit on our hands. And we need to be meeting more often, candidly.
Well, and like I suggest.
In
is,
addition.
Because, we all sit and say, this is just what the ordinance says. Okay, then start assigning to people. Start assigning, okay. Barry and Jacob have agreed, as committee members, have agreed to say, okay, you take the 24, or the 48 hour, you take the 24, you take the 48 hour. And then you say, okay, that's my responsibility. So if they come in here, but again, you gotta make sure that you're tagging the correct ordinance, because what you believe is trash, Barry, is maybe not what is actually stated in the ordinance either. So I mean, start assigning these roles.
But-
Start assigning the people to who they're
Right,
supposed to be.
but who's the one to make that determination? Like, if Barry thinks someone's porch looks trashy, and
Pictures
You
are-
have to have pictures,
are
so
everything.
Yeah,
So
I've
you
been-
bring a picture
we
in
always
here and say,
document by
okay,
photo.
you
Right.
would say, hey, I took a picture of Courtney's house.
Right.
And she has trash piled to the ceiling of her porch. The picture will say, okay, is that what it is? Now, when Jack goes out and delivers that, it's the understanding of the sheriff's department, because he created nuisance and abatement at one time. So if he's gonna say, hey, Courtney, that doesn't look like that it is.
Yeah,
we
kids'
need to
bicycles in the
evaluate that.
front yard, that's not the same as trash
That's not.
piled to the ceiling of your
Or it
porch.
could be, hey, it's the day before trash, and you may have went around and
Right.
trash wasn't picked up on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So that's just a waste of committee, that's a waste of tagging, and that's a waste of a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
again, if we want these dealt with, daily, I would again suggest getting a code enforcement officer.
Sounds good, but we don't have one today. So which one of you then will be responsible for that?
Can I finish my list that I
Oh,
was
of course, I'm
telling you?
sorry for interrupting.
You're
Pardon me.
fine, you're fine. It was probably Barry anyway. All right, so once, let me get back here. Of course, the tags are written, I recommend by the chair. That's historically how it's been. Then, the designated person from the committee will drive by and take photos of violations, and then the sheriff will deliver the tags. We will attach, I also recommend that we attach the ordinance and highlight the violation and staple it to the tag.
I think that's really important for the
we did that
reason
last
that we
time.
are often asked, what ordinance am I in violation of? Tell me what I just did.
Exactly. And I think that's very important as well. Now, we're going to get into after the sheriff delivers the tags. I don't know of any ordinance that I've ever run across that's a 24-hour turnaround. I've seen 48 hours and I've seen 5 days. So I guess when we get the violation, we're going to have to look at that ordinance and, figure out.
Yeah, preferably, highlight that.
Absolutely. So the follow-ups need to be made by the appointed committee person. If the issue is resolved, they can update the chair to update the spreadsheet. If it's unresolved, we go to a second tag process, as Barry said. Same process. If it goes unresolved again in the 48 hours or whatever time frame it is, then we have the option of sending an attorney letter to them. We have the attorney letter. It's been approved by our council, by council and by the solicitor. If we have to go to a second attorney letter, then we do a second attorney letter, and that's where it's always stopped before,
Then
after
what?
the attorney letter. So now, what you should consider doing, if it's still unresolved, we have the option to charge them the $150 a day. We have another option of taking it to municipal court.
Yep.
And municipal court will not charge us for that, is my understanding, and that's where resolution happens. When they see that we're gonna be, and it's $150 a day, so every day, and I think someone else mentioned this as well, we need to monitor that property.
Right.
And if not, then the courts will intervene and they will,
Is that in regards to what you just said, the 2018-17, is that what you're
That's-
referring to?
It's the one about trash
Yeah.
in the yards.
Right.
Because I don't again,
This
I
is
don't
the-
have a setup where, like if the resident comes in and pays the $150, we're under the understanding that the resident's not gonna pay it. So the reflection of what you were saying, to be modest about it, $105,000.
Yeah.
That's only if they pay it. So, and again, if that goes on their property tax, the property tax can only be submitted once a year. So
Right.
then it goes to the next year.
yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so.
one of the things I think is important is we do reserve the right to
Assess the
mow
tax.
yards, for example, and charge the folks who let their yards go up to their kneecaps.
Charge them the $60
Charge them
mowing fee.
however much it is to get it taken care of, and then that is, as Courtney said, put back on the property tax. That's something we can do and have done, as a matter of fact, with 2 properties right now, as I sit here and speak.
Yeah. I would also like to recommend that we go by, when we check and see that it is resolved, take a picture of the resolution and what they've done to clean it up, because it's been stated in the past that some things get done, some things get let go. I want to make sure so that council and the village knows if they want to know, these got done. Here's the photographs. Now, in 3 months, will they be bad again? That's what we're dealing with now. And the courts will take care of the violations for us. And Stephen can file it with Muni Court. That is not a problem. The only other thing I have as far as roles and responsibilities, I think in the past, we've always had, the chair has updated the spreadsheet, written the tags, communicated with committee members throughout the month on, anything new that comes in or something special that comes in. Stephen can file anything in court that's unresolved, calling the resident, and then the committee members follow up on tags within the appropriate time frame, take photos as needed.
Well, as the chair of this, I'm not comfortable with having all of those roles and responsibilities on my plate. If you'd like to have them, you sure can. As far as making that compiled worksheet, I'd be happy if you do that. I'd be happy then to write the tags out. And then maybe somebody else, like Craig, would be happy to, follow up with the process after you guys report it to him. If we could divide those out, there's no reason for one of us to do it all and then everyone else to just not. So, yeah. So if that's something you guys want to do, but again, know that, we only meet once a month. That's,
Well, that was the problem The
That's,
last time was-
But we have to communicate throughout the
The
month.
tags didn't get written. till
Yeah,
the-
yeah, that
right
was,
Before the last meeting, so
right.
he's getting a phone call on the 1st. We need to probably respond by the
Right,
2nd or 3rd.
and last meeting, when that issue was brought up, Andy did say that he would be the person to do the daily.
I would be happy to, so in agenda item 2, which is the status of existing tags, without getting into the specifics, although we can if we want to publicly shame, and I'm starting to be okay with that, as I've said in other committee meetings before. You do not have a right to live in squalor, is all I'm going to say about that. But the status of existing tags, I mainly want to make sure we're on one tracking spreadsheet.
yeah.
I do mine because I want to make sure that if a resident calls into the mayor or calls into our staff, they're heard, it's registered, and it promptly gets over to either the committee or to someone who can help with it, whether it's Jack to follow up on a tag he may be placing or whatever. It's just really important to have one list.
Right.
So I'm, whatever is necessary to do that, I'm happy to do that. I can write tags. I will volunteer to do anything, as I said the last meeting. But, there's a lot of folks in this room too. So,
Right.
So let's start
well,
assigning.
how would you like to
Okay.
handle, let's start with, how would you like to handle the spreadsheet? Would you like me to do that?
First of all, I recommend, what I would like to know is why we have a chair now that isn't willing to do what other chairs in the past have always done.
Okay. I'm going to stop you right there.
I'm just asking a question.
Okay, well, I'm just going to give you an answer. You are not the only person that's ever been chair of nuisance. I was chair of this for several years myself. So, we are supposed to be working as a team. I'm not going to come to these meetings anymore and get singled out and attacked. I'm over it, okay? And like I told you on the phone, if you don't want me doing this, take me off this committee and you can run it yourself. But anything short of that, I'm not going to be personally attacked anymore. Okay? So, I love my community. I'm willing to help. I bust my butt for this community. So, with that said, I will help the same as any other council member should help. And I appreciate these volunteers from the community, and I appreciate their help. And I appreciate any help we get from Andy or Courtney. But I will not have it all put on my lap, and it has not always been the role of the chairman to take everything upon themselves. That was your choice. It is not mine. So, moving forward,
It wasn't my choice to take all of that. When I became chair, those were the responsibilities that I was told I needed to do.
okay, well,
Okay.
I don't know who told you that, and I don't know why you got all of that, but this is a committee. It's not the chairman, so it's a committee. I will run the meetings for you, I will report to council for you, and I will share the work with you.
Okay, so back to the spreadsheet. So am I going to be tackling the spreadsheet as some of the folks who receive these?
That would be awesome if you
Okay,
want that.
I'd be happy to do that, no problem. I'll take the spreadsheet. I'll go back to the one that I did most recently.
Now, is everybody receiving all of this information? Everybody's emails?
So I mail it out to everybody I have an email address for. So I'm not,
When
not,
was the last time you mailed it? Because,
2 weeks ago.
okay, because
I haven't gotten it.
I haven't
You have
got one.
not gotten it
I won't.
because we have not.
Okay.
Well, I haven't got one
There's been
since
several separate lists, and I
4
don't think that I'm gonna keep
4/3.
mailing them out if no one's doing anything on them. So, to make a long story short, I am going to go ahead, every complaint that I get, our staff gets, I expect all complaints that the committees get to be forwarded to me. Is there any ambiguity about that? Anybody have any questions about that?
Okay, so. will
I
you be
respectfully
s-
disagree with that, Andy. I think that should be either the chair or the committee.
Okay,
If he's willing
thank
to
you, and
do
duly
it.
noted. I feel like Joyce, that's very kind of you to say, but we get them a lot, and I'd rather have them in one place where everyone can have one single source of record, and we'll go from there.
So is it, so are you only so would that be emailed out on a certain day of each week?
I have been doing them Monday mornings.
Okay.
Okay. So, I don't know
And
that we
previously, I've been
resolved.
even putting them in the lobby, in case anyone wants them.
Yeah.
Okay, so You will compile, so if anybody has a complaint, are you guys only, is the committee only working complaints that come into town hall or come to you personally? So the committee will not be driving around to find the issues.
My expectation is if I drive around, I report things to.
If you see something.
If I see something, I say something.
But I don't, yes, I agree. I don't think we should be actively out there looking and going down alleys. If someone in that area says, hey, my neighborhood is trashy down this alley, then we go look. But, yeah, we get plenty to work right now, and being shorter staffed, I think we work what we see. So I would be happy after Andy gets a spreadsheet and sends that out to everyone on Monday mornings. Then, Andy, those would just be ones that were reported, correct? They would need to be verified by
Correct.
someone driving and taking
I would
pictures.
appreciate it if someone would take pictures.
So would you gentlemen, or,
Well,
I go
here's,
out there, I do exactly what you said.
Yeah.
I go around the village, not
Yep.
just my area,
yeah,
because I thought that's what we were supposed to do.
We did
I
it
do
one
the same
time.
thing too.
I
And
do
when
it
I
all
go
the
and
time.
check
If I go out,
on
I really
tags,
look.
I'm also looking and adding, I'm like, hey, these are ones that we were addressing and working on, and then I do a separate one where I'm like, these are new ones.
Okay, so I probably wouldn't suggest Monday, because trash pickup is on Tuesday
It's
morning.
on Tuesdays.
Right.
I have only been doing that only because our committee meetings have been falling on, weird days. So if we need to do it the Friday before, I don't care, it's fine.
well, if Andy does his list on Monday,
Yeah,
then
you
we
have to
won't,
wait
then
Tuesday.
these guys maybe could go around
Tuesday morning.
Tuesday or Wednesday
Yeah.
and look.
here's,
Okay.
my thought is maybe if Jacob wants to do the initial, go around, if it's not in compliance, do the tag, sheriff goes out, then depends on the ordinance, 24, 48 hours, I will go back to do the recheck. That way you have two separate eyes on the same.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Seems
two
very
different
reasonable to
eyes.
me.
Yeah.
And then if
So
it
will you
isn't,
do the 24 and 48 hours as well? Like, you're gonna do all the tags? Like, you're gonna take pictures of all of
If
them?
he wants to, I would let him do all the initial ones.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I would follow up and
You would follow up with the 24, because remember, you
20,
get,
yeah,
you
24 or 48, whatever, and see that it's in compliance or not in compliance. And we either
Okay.
mark it complete or write another tag.
Okay, well, let's go back one step. So Andy's gonna send the list, you're gonna go out and check them and take pictures. Then you're going to bring a list to me or another council member.
Well, shouldn't I give them to
to
Andy because
do
he's
the
the one
tags.
compliant? Or-
No, he doesn't need to
Okay,
write the
okay.
tags. Someone else, one of the council members needs to write the
So
tags.
that's I think where I was coming into frustration. Who on the committee is going to write tags if we go back out, like whether it's new or pre-existing? Like who's gonna make that call of writing tags, saying we need to fine, saying we need to do a law,
Well,
like that
okay.
that level? That's what I'd try.
The follow-up, look, I think you're asking sort of two questions
Right.
in one. The first question is who does the tags?
Right,
That's number one. Number two, when does it get ratcheted up? That's a separate issue.
Right.
And it goes depending on the ordinance and depending on the situation. If you have someone, which we've recently been dealing with, living in a pretty awful set of circumstances, then that's a different path than
Yeah.
asking somebody to mow their grass, and if they don't, having our grass cutter help them out a little bit.
Okay, so who's
And that
gonna
would
be-
come back, that would necessarily come back to potentially this group.
Okay, so Jacob will then go and do all the tags and take pictures. Okay, who's gonna be the?
well, he's not gonna
committee-
do tags, he's gonna
he's just gonna take
take
He's gonna
pictures
Take pictures.
and
gonna
check
verify.
out Andy's list.
right.
Okay, so
And-
then what member will be writing the tags?
But before you write the tags, don't we have to make the phone calls?
We
Well, I'm
don't
just saying,
have,
you
Well-
we
come back
do not
town
have to
hall
make a phone
discuss,
call.
Yes, how you're gonna approach it. So that if that is making phone calls, like I said, until you guys can get picked up and the committee can run smoothly, I will help you. I will, like, me and Jacob made phone calls. Again, if the tags need to be written so that you guys know what to do, I will be willing to help you.
I will be more than happy to
But not
volunteer
all-
to
but
write the
not
tags
entire time.
and sit with Courtney and make phone calls with her. I'll be more than happy to do that.
Okay, so do you want, Craig, I see your hand,
I'll
Joyce, I
write
see
tags.
yours.
I'm sorry, what is your question?
I've seen both of you, so.
I'll write
Yeah.
tags, I have no
You're
problem
both
with that.
competing for tags.
I think, Joyce, I think you're good.
decide. I don't, I'll gladly do it. That's one of the things I can do.
Okay, how about this? We'll let Joyce take the first round of tags, phone calls, tags, and then the next piece of the puzzle would be Barry would come in and do follow-up photographs.
Photographs.
Okay, and then Craig will write the second set of tags on the ones that did not get completed. 48 hours. Yes.
Yeah, so just to let everybody know, when you look at that spreadsheet, it already has a column for follow-up, and then the date, and then what was done. So I would appreciate that if you go do that, whoever it is, which go-around, you let me know what's been done, so that I can make sure that everyone is on the same page as to the current state of affairs. Now,
Just remember, is when, I would prefer it if Andy's going to be the holder and the person for the spreadsheet, you know, that people need to be communicating correctly or whatever, but watch what you're doing and saying an email, because that becomes a public record. So make sure that you're sending back the response of what you have, or if you send it directly to Andy, and then Andy can ship out the
yes,
spreadsheet.
you don't need, you can basically, I'm trying to roll it up as the funnel to all this into one place, make it easy for all of you to know what is open at any one given time. That's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah. So Joyce writes the tags, this would be the first set of tags. The tags and phone calls with me. So then what happens after that, I feel.
It's Barry.
A communication needs to be sent to Barry, okay? And we're saying, hey, we wrote up 5 tags. The sheriff's department received them. He's gonna be delivering them and marking them on, let's just go through the week, on Wednesday. So he's gonna deliver tags on Wednesday. So we would communicate with you and say, hey, these are the addresses that you need to go and follow back up on.
Okay.
Is that correct?
That's correct. And I take photos, and then I will give my list that is either marked complete or.
To Andy.
Nope,
No, I'll
to
give them
Craig.
to Craig. Craig will write tags again.
Craig will have the
Second.
final round
Yeah, if it's been
to
tagged twice.
complete all of it.
Yeah, but I feel like it's gonna get messed up in transition, because Andy's not gonna know the history of each one of those addresses.
Well, we can
Andy's
email
not
him.
gonna, yeah, he's not gonna really need to know until the next week when he would issue a new one. Everyone within that week can get all the responses
The
back.
big question is all these photos, how do you get these photos to who and how?
It's to the next person up the line, I would say.
Well, the
Do an email.
Yeah,
an
technically
email.
speaking, I think Courtney and I should put our heads together how to best do those. Those are public records.
We can
and
have them printed off. I mean, if you take them on your phone, I think our digital camera, we can have them printed off from there as well.
They should, again, be funneled into one place, and, you know, if we have to have nuisance at mountsterling.org set up as an inbox for that, that's no problem to do. And we can store them appropriately,
Yeah.
and then when they're done and resolved, we move on with it. But
Right.
we need to keep a file on basically any open one that isn't resolved, so that it can be dealt with.
And as Courtney was saying earlier, that's what Jack, when he used to be super active in nuisance and abatement, we had a notebook, and he took pictures. And we would see what's done, what's not done, and we'd go through them one by one.
Okay, so then after Craig writes the second tags. Okay, and then what happens?
Well, then, according to, what Joyce was saying, the option would be an attorney letter for those that are not complying. So I'd
Maybe
be,
it's worth spending a little bit of time about what's in the attorney letter. So what's in the attorney letter is essentially the last step before you're sent to muni court. Now, we never want to be here. We don't like doing these things. But again, you know, we're not Dublin, but we also want you to clean the trash out of your yard. And so you've had at that point pretty darn fair amount of chances to get your collective house in order.
Right.
Would everyone agree, in agreement with that? By
Yes.
that point, you're
yes.
pretty darn far along the line.
Now, Andy, as far as these ones that are marked, the resolutions right now are that they're health department intervention.
Yeah. Well, I think there's two aspects about that. The health department is a county level, and we own some of the other stuff. So the health department has a limited span of powers that some.
And we should just continue to do our thing.
I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we do not stop just because because the health department is not going to go mow grass. And oftentimes these
Or pick up
have the
trash.
same problem, yes, have the same, they have overlapping issues. So if they're spreading trash in your yard, 9 times out of 10, they're not mowing either. And so the health department is not gonna deal with that, and they'll have their own set of like issues that the resident is gonna unfortunately have to go deal with. So, we just keep going. There's no reason to stop. And we have one that's open
Because
with
just
that right now,
remember,
as a matter of fact.
As each ordinance, and I think that's important to know, the book of ordinances are in the conference office here, so that if anybody wants to see them. This is just one ordinance. Other
Yeah, there's-
ordinances have different rules and penalties and regulations on that, so you need to get acquainted with yourselves on how that is, because like I'm looking at, a grass one right here, and, it has a 48-hour posting.
Right?
Again, different process. This one doesn't get a yellow tag. This has to get delivered and, it's actually posted on their door, okay?
Yeah,
So it says here that if it's not done within 48 hours, please contact. So this one doesn't actually have a $150 fee on it. It's just saying you need to call town hall and you have 48 hours to do that. So this one, you don't have, $150 daily on it.
It's the same way with
We'll
the,
go mow it and charge you back. I mean, that's the resolution is if you don't get it under control, we're gonna charge you for it.
that's the same way with the one with the vehicle or the boat in the yard. There's a 48-hour grace period, but then after that, our ordinance doesn't say you're getting a fine. It just gives you a 48-hour
That's right.
period. So then we need to, I guess, through the attorney letter, or
Yeah.
we need to, like someone started to say at the beginning, maybe it's time to really look at all the ordinances and freshen them up a little bit.
Well, some of them are passed down to us by the Ohio Revised Code, so we don't really change them, but the ones that, I think Stephen Smith would say, our solicitor would say that the resolution on at least some of the ordinances without quote-unquote penalties is the next step is you obtain a judgment to enforce it. And so at that point, once you obtain a judgment, the village has the right to go clean stuff up. And if it's a hazard, for example, which a couple of these are, especially to the neighbors, we'd have the right to come in and clean that up. And I think that it's, there's also a couple layers on here. One of the questions that I have out there is, how do we involve the landlords more actively in the management of their properties, especially when many of them don't live here? I don't have a magic answer, but I will say that obtaining a judgment against a landlord for the property squalor gets your attention pretty fast. And so, I would imagine that no landlord really wants to deal with a tenant who's, causing rats to go over into their neighbor's yard. So I would hope that we would get support from landlords in enforcing some of this. If not, then we have to pursue other options. I'm being straightforward with the community that I'm kind of done with it. And if we can get, momentum on this, I think the more we do, it builds on itself.
Because it only takes one example, so. I
It
mean,
takes a couple,
you
it
know,
takes a
and
couple,
the way-
like, to get cleaned up,
the way-
and
the
then
way
their
I feel
picture
I
is, the
wouldn't wanna
point
live
is
beside
made.
that. And I feel terrible that when residents do have to live beside that and they keep their yards up and
Yeah.
they want to be clean
Yeah.
and they have, creatures and things coming over to their yard, it's just, it's not fair. It's not fair to anybody. And I feel like this committee, working together, needs to work together and make sure that we, because there are some, if you ever look at that book, there are some that have been in there for years upon years.
Well, moving on, I would be happy to follow up once it gets to this stage of the attorney letter. I'd be happy to sit down and write attorney letters once all the other processes have been,
So there is a generic one, so all you'd have to do is just plug it in there.
We've already
I have an
drafted it, and it's
example of
pretty,
that I
yeah,
just
it's pretty
pulled out.
explicit, so
Yeah, I've
it's a pretty
seen it.
straightforward, it's a matter of getting it organized by violation.
About involving the landlord. Wouldn't that, since if they're renting and we're gonna send them an attorney letter, the renters, shouldn't we really send it to the
Actually, you
landlord?
send them to both.
So,
Oh,
Yeah, the
both?
short
Oh,
answer
okay.
is both, and the long answer is that, if it doesn't register, because there have been landlords who are out of town, who don't obviously live here and don't necessarily visit their properties very often, we proceed forward. We keep going.
I
And I don't want to be mean about it, but I also don't believe it's in the tenant's
Barry's
best
gotta
interest.
leave.
Barry's got to leave. I'm sorry, Barry. You got to take off, but
Craig can speak on my behalf. Up to $100.
sounds good. Up to $100. That sounds good. I love that. Love that. That's how it should work.
I also found another letter that Courtney used to send out to the residents instead of an attorney letter. And if you wanted to try this one first without being mean, you know, even though I don't think we're being mean, I think we're doing what we need to do to make our residents safe and not live in squalor. But this one just says that, you know, you violated the ordinance and it's not allowed within our village, and whoever violates this section is guilty of a minor misdemeanor. Please contact to make arrangements of removing, you know, the situation.
Chickens one, yeah.
Yeah, that one was.
Yep.
Yeah, that one was one that we've used in a couple of different circumstances. Most recently with that, it's helpful. It's great.
Did it work?
Yeah, it's worked a couple times.
So do you want to do that first before we send out an attorney letter?
It doesn't matter, either one. It's all going to go out in letterhead.
All right.
So whatever one that makes sense to this committee, it does not matter. It's all going to go out on letterhead and be an official communication from the village.
I think with
And
the reoccurring ones, the attorney letter has to be,
for sure.
Well, I think it's a discretion. If there's a problem house, we're going straight to the attorney letter. If this is a minor thing that maybe needs a little more attention, but it's not serious, we go to that letter. Because some people, I think, are just
Just to be clear, Jacob, by this point, just remember, by this point, you will have followed up several times, multiple times,
Yeah.
preferably phoned, done all those things, knocked on door, and basically said, can you please clean up this situation? And so at some point, you're like, okay, safety switch is now thrown, we need to resolve this. And so I'm at a place where I think we send the attorney letter.
Oh, I am too, because there's two houses on Columbus that are next to each other,
I-
and one is,
Yep.
and then the next door neighbor. So I went to see if there was rats there, and I didn't see any. The house, it's just this house is such a problem. It is now spilling over into neighbors.
Yes.
Is my opinion on that
Yeah, so
situation.
that's where I'm at, is I'm kind of, that letter is a kind letter. It did used to go out on letterhead, so it was an official thing. But that was, I think, before we had Stephen help us put together stuff. So now we're at a place where resident has opted not to.
you have more
Hel-
teeth behind it.
Yeah, resident has opted not to help us with the process, and so therefore I think we go, turn the temperature up a little bit more.
Now, I guess my question is when we turn up the temperature and we take, say, somebody to court, and it's a landlord-owned property, who are we gonna hold?
Landlord.
Landlord?
The
Okay.
landlord owns the property and
Okay.
has the relationship with the tenant.
I just wanted to be clear on who we're gonna,
Well, actually, D, all of the above. So
Yeah.
if you got to remember, the landlord owns the property and is responsible for cleanup. The tenant himself or herself has actually committed the misdemeanor.
yeah.
So,
The landlord's not gonna wanna get in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
Because of that. So
Right.
they're probably gonna make sure that, okay, if I'm getting an attorney letter, I need to make sure that so regardless of whoever it is, it's a village ordinance that has been broken.
Yeah.
So regardless if it's a renter, a kid, a son, a daughter, the landlord, whoever is at that property is where the court would take it. It's the property itself, not the person.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounded weird.
Well, I would like to discuss some of the three biggest offenders that I know of, which are on East Columbus, two of them there, and one is right on West Main Street. Now, these properties, and I've gone through paperwork way back, they have been a problem for many, many years. This is not something new. There has not been any chair, including myself, that has taken it to the full resolution. So, being as that I feel we're kind of behind everything right now, I would be more than glad to take on those 3 properties and see them through full resolution, so the chair and the committee could go ahead and, get caught up on some of the other things we're dealing with.
Yeah,
It's
there
fine
are
by
some
me.
that, yeah, I think that
Okay.
need to have individual.
Okay, I will represent those 3 properties, and I will discuss them with Stephen again, and we'll get it resolved.
Yeah, just make sure that we all know what 3 those are, so we're not out doing the same thing that you're already doing.
Sure, well, I'm gonna have Andy put it on the spreadsheet.
Yeah, they'll be on the list.
And he can notate me on
chances
it.
are, they're there right
Yeah,
now.
chances are we know what
Yeah, we
they are,
know, we know.
but.
But get with me on that, because I have some additional
Absolutely,
information. on that.
absolutely. And I want to say one other thing, a little off topic. Becky, if someone on this committee or council has attacked you personally or offended you in any way, then I do feel that you are owed an apology. I do not ever want to attack anyone personally. When I think of committees and chairs, I don't think of the people doing them. I honestly think of that position and because it doesn't matter who's chair, we should all be following the same process. And that's why I'm very glad that we've come together and gotten this done. So, I think we need to stay focused, stay professional, and keep on target. And we're setting an action plan now, which is great. And I think the line of communication between committee meetings should always stay open. And we can do that by going through the mayor, or going through the chair, or going through Courtney, or give it to the chair and she can give it to you, however you guys want to work it out, so that we all have the same information and we're all on the same page. And that's very important to me, because it has gotten, for me, chaotic and confusing. Okay, now what we're assigning here now, I think is a very positive step in the right direction. I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but that's okay. That's why we have, more than one person on a committee. It's okay to agree to disagree. So with that being said, like I said, I'll take those 3 properties. I will let you know what they are, Becky, and Andy, you can notate them on the spreadsheet.
Good deal, thank you.
Thank you.
So the timeline, just so I'm thinking that we're not lapping over to a weekend. So Monday's a spreadsheet, Andy's sending out.
Well, that was the question, is I normally do them on Mondays, have been doing them on Mondays, but I heard that was not good timing and that I should do them at the end of the
No,
week.
I think
Mondays-
Mondays would be good, I just
fine.
recall about trash day, so if Jacob's going to do the initial request, then it would have to be after, the trash has been
Yeah,
picked up.
Tuesday
Yeah.
afternoon.
Which they pick it up in the morning, that's fine.
Yeah, so then let's just say we'll just do a 48 hour, so then the 48 hour goes into Wednesday, Thursday, which means that it would come back to Barry, right? The initial one, he would be writing tags on Thursday again,
Well,
well, you would be,
hold on. So Jacob's gonna go out like on Tuesday.
yes.
And then, according to the list, you and Joyce are gonna be making phone calls and writing tags.
Yes,
And then you will notify Barry
yeah, that's what I'm saying, so
Yeah.
I'm talking about like time.
after
Yes.
that.
So Barry, I skipped that part, but Barry would be on Thursday,
If Jack gets them delivered,
Yeah.
I mean, that's all contingent
Yeah, like we're
upon-
all like,
yes.
if
But that's what I'm
everything
saying,
works
like, I
out.
wanted to make sure that we're not lapsing into a weekend, because when it says, it doesn't identify if it's a business 48, 24, or if it's a weekend kind of thing. So I'm just making sure that we can get this fulfilled within a week, so then that means that Barry would be going out, seeing if our tags were successful, and then Craig would be writing the second ones. So that would lay on Friday, let's just say. Let's just say that they get delivered on Thursday.
Could be the following
All
Monday.
contingent on, that,
We write them on Thursday.
yes.
Okay.
And then,
I
Jack
I
would
don't
take
know
them
if
out
you'll
on
be
Friday.
able to assign certain days because of variables, but
Well,
as long as you guys communicate to the next
Yeah.
step and let each other know.
so are you doing this every week? So all I'm saying is that
Oh,
when
yeah.
the new ones come in, the old ones still need to be followed up on. So, I always worry with committees is that there's too many complaints coming in and then they get missed again. So let's just focus right now.
We're gonna
on
have
the
one
complaints.
concise list.
Yeah, you will have focus right on the complaints at first.
And don't pick up nuisances of your
Yes.
own that you don't put on
That's right.
Andy's
Yeah.
list.
That's what I'm saying, is we don't wanna get tied
Mm-hmm.
across.
Or if you see one, say something.
Right, turn it
Well,
into
just send
Andy.
it to
Send
you.
it to me, yeah,
Right.
or send it to, again, one of our staff, at all, as long as I'm, working here, I mean, we're all rolling up into one place. So as long as that happens, I don't care whether it goes to Misty or Courtney or me or whomever, just please get it to us.
I have a question. On the spreadsheet,
Mm-hmm.
I know when I used to manage the processes with Chase Bank as far as Gantt charts and stuff like that, I would make sure that I could publish it maybe on the website, maybe not on the website because there are addresses and names there, but publish it somewhere, even if it's just in an email, so that we, we're not kind of falling over each other. But say when Jacob goes around and does his updates, he can go right into the spreadsheet and update it.
Yeah, we're looking at,
Like a shared spreadsheet.
yeah, we're looking at shared
Exactly.
space right now, and I think that that's a great idea, and it helps with duplication of efforts.
And if they don't want to do it, they don't have to.
That's right, and the good news is that I think there are solutions for that, and let me look into it, and I'll come
Thank
back
you.
to at the next meeting and let you know maybe
Okay.
some options.
Well, that's kind of my question.
I think
is-
that'll help Becky too.
Well,
Sorry.
well, I was just wondering, now, when I take your list and I verify, am I sending, like, am I gonna,
Remember, it builds on itself, so
Yeah.
you will only have
well, yeah,
new,
yeah, the new
really
ones.
only new ones.
So
you'll-
when I'm moving those, am I just sending the email
The
to
next step is
Joyce
Joyce.
and Courtney?
Just send
Yeah.
it,
Yeah,
yeah.
you'll need to, because she
That's
is the clerk
fine.
of council and,
Okay.
and the village, so there's.
I just want to make sure that I'm sending
You can,
to the
you
right
can, you can really
people.
just send it to Courtney because I'll be coming in here to
Yeah.
go over it with
But
you.
just making sure, that's what I'm saying, the communication is making sure that who
Exactly.
you need to send them to.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Joyce and Courtney, or both, need to forward that to Barry. And then Barry will need to forward to Craig.
Yeah.
And then Craig will need to either finish the list back with Andy, or, I guess that's,
Well, I think a final resolution would be sent to Andy.
yeah.
And then like he can color code it and say, okay, this one's been completed, because I think the committee all wants to know.
And then the next
okay,
week, we can look.
Right, how many, like, green was good, they were corrected. Red would mean that, hey, it's still outstanding.
Yeah, I can do that.
We need
That's
to do
easy.
the next thing.
That's
That's-
easy.
that's
If you
an
want to
easy
color code them,
highlight.
that's absolutely no problem. There'll be stoplight color coded, whether, green is done, yellow, there's been some progress, red, nothing happens. We'll just do it stoplight color, it's fine.
Are you putting dates on those?
Oh,
too?
yes.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
I just.
I get dates,
I
to
just
dates
wanted to make
of
sure.
when it comes in the door and when it's resolved.
I was just asking, I haven't seen one of these spreadsheets that you've sent out yet.
When I start addressing these three properties, I'm not going to start from the beginning. I'm not going to issue tags. I'm not going to send an attorney letter.
That's probably okay only if you have a file already on them.
Right.
That's the thing is, before going down that path, we probably should take an assessment of where we really have left off with them, and whether we've taken good faith efforts to resolve this. Most of them, by the way, those three that you're talking about, I believe are all landlord owned, and so,
The one
Yeah,
is in a different direction.
yeah, one
That's
of
what
them
I'm
is
saying.
going in a
Those
different
we need to
direction.
probably
So,
talk
so I think that there's a couple shots to fire across the bow before seeing,
Okay. Well, even if we
just to
sent
get attention
an
and
attorney letter
understanding.
saying second notification,
Yeah, I think.
that would be appropriate,
But
because
there's,
we've already
there's
sent them
one
one.
property though that's taken completely out of the village scenario.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna be a challenge.
So those ones we'll need to talk.
So, yeah,
Separately.
the ones that are persistent issues, I think deserve their own.
Stephen is aware of the one property, with the zoning issue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah, that's a little different one
That's a
than-
little different scenario,
Yeah.
but he remembers it,
Yeah,
Fence?
and that is,
yep.
It's a structure building.
Okay. okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that's a different bird, but,
Those ones we can talk offline.
yeah, we can talk about it. When, Stephen's available, I called him, left him a message, and he, it was a couple hours, but he got back with me before the meeting started, so I appreciated that.
Okay, so our next meeting is next week, is it?
It
I got one more
is,
question.
yes, yes.
If I'm writing the 48 tag, who checks them?
I would say.
That would be Barry, because Barry
Oh,
would.
Back to
Barry
the
does.
same-
Barry,
You go
Barry,
back
yeah,
to the
Barry.
same process as
So
previous.
he's the first one, he would be the second
Yes.
set. So like, just think of it, Jacob, Joyce, and I are paired. You, Barry, and I are paired. So us three are paired at the second writing of the tag. they're the first tag.
Okay.
Yeah. So I will help you with writing the second ones.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
I just want to bring up real quick. I know that we were at the sheriff's meeting. The sheriff said that a deputy could come to this meeting. I just, my thing is just rather than having Jack deliver tags, I kind of want to get it to where any deputy working days is able
They have.
to.
Yeah,
Well, I just
don't-
want to make sure.
Don't disagree, don't disagree, and, you know, we've
They're really
traditionally
nice about
enjoyed
it.
very strong support on that.
It's a good question, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll be happy to look into that.
absolutely. And thank you, whoever, I don't know if it was Courtney or the mayor, for moving the sign from the front of the church.
I wish I
It
could take credit, I just gave him some
Yeah.
feedback.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, that he moved it.
He moved it, yeah.
We appreciate that. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Does anyone have
Well-
anything else?
We had something else on the agenda, I thought.
my thing was basically making sure we had a next meeting, which we do.
Yeah.
When is that?
It's
May
the
13th.
Or next
May
time.
13th.
That's what I thought.
Now, are you keeping that one at 6:30, Becky?
I mean, do you guys want it to be a full hour?
I would recommend
we
that we go
burned
a
through an
full-
hour right
At
now.
least for now, until we get everything under control.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll change it to 6 until maybe the process gets a little smoother.
Perfect.
But ideally, once we go to those meetings, it just should be,
It should be like butter.
yeah.
Yeah. I think that this is gonna be like a well-oiled machine once we get, to tackling things. So we need to talk a little bit, if we have time, for status of current tags.
Let me
yeah.
update, I guess
He's gotta do the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I would, let's do that, because I'm not entirely sure all of our constituent members know that. So let's do that, plus we're at the bottom of the hour.
Okay. All right. And can we start reviewing like maybe one ordinance a meeting, one a month?
Yes, let us get the ordinance book out and refer specific ones.
Okay. Well, I know the one we need to remove the code enforcement officer.
There's certainly that, but I'm talking about the, for example, length of grass. We updated the overgrown, vegetation at one point. Where I was going with that is to make it clear that there's a progression of like how does this get enforced and what's there.
Okay. So the next step is to wait until you publish?
Yeah, I think we need to pull some of
Yeah.
these for
Because you put one out last week, I believe, Courtney.
Yeah. They're in that red book in there, so I think one thing at a time as we review some of these, because, I think as whoever, like, when we're writing tags and stuff, we just circle saying, hey, we need to remove this, we need to edit this. Maybe that would be for the next meeting, that we bring a couple of them.
Yep.
Obviously, 2018-17, I think needs to be changed anyways.
Does anyone have anything else? All right, 5:32, we will adjourn.
Thank you.
Becky, do you want some of these newsletters for your shop?
Sure.
When's your next chamber meeting?
Second